Hey, what's up folks? Welcome back to another Made with SwiftUI video. In this video, we're gonna go through buttons. Like what kind of buttons can you create, how can you modify them, what kind of styles can you add, and also how can you reuse this code that you create for all your buttons. It's gonna be a very simple video and it's gonna help you a lot. So let's just jump into the implementation. Alright, so I have here my Xcode and this is Xcode 11 beta 3. They've introduced some new initializers for buttons, and also I'm running Catalina, so that's why we're gonna be able to see the previews on the right side. Okay, so to create a button is extremely simple. You just need to, I'm gonna increase the font size. You just need to say button and add some kind of text to it, and then you need to add a closure. This closure is gonna be basically your button action. And you can see already on the right side, your SwiftUI created a button already. So if we run right now our review and we press on the button, something is gonna do, nothing at the moment because we don't have any action. So it's as simple as that to create a button. But how do you go and customize it? Well, if you're already familiar with SwiftUI, you can of course add modifiers. So a modifier can have like an accent color of, let's say, .red, so our button becomes red. We can have like a background and add a color of, let's say, gray, and so on. So let's go and actually create a very nice button. I would like to go and create a rounded button. iOS applications use these kind of buttons, so they're very useful. So let's go and see how we can create one. First of all, I would need an accent color, and I'm gonna choose white. That is basically what color our font has. So right now it disappears because our background is also white. Very simply, we can add the background in there, and we can say color.red. And right now, you can see our button in here added a background color, but it's everything tied to the text. There's no padding. We would like to add some padding, and that's very simple to do. You just simply need to add the padding just before you set up your background color. So if you do padding, you will see your button background color expands. That is because first it goes and adds the padding to the button, and then it sets the color. You will see that if we change this range, then our button still has the padding, as you can see on this square. However, the background color has not been applied yet, since we are adding the padding after we set up the background color. So let's keep our padding like this, and simply let's say a corner radius of 10. And if we see, we already have our rounded button. With just like 4 lines of code, we modified our button to appeal something very nicely, and that's very good. But we don't just create a button with just a text. Sometimes we would like to have icons on our buttons, or icons and text. So let's go and see how we can create those ones. Simply we have to call another initializer of button, and that one is the one with action and label. So action takes a closure of what action to run, and then a label, it's what kind of views does this button have. So we're gonna create a horizontal stack that will contain an image and a text. So the image is gonna be a system image, and I'm gonna use the magnifying glass. And if I can spell this correctly. And also it will have a text, something that we'll call search. Oh, but first we would need to add a vertical stack in here, since we are turning a lot of buttons, and we'll just like to have it like this. Alright, so you can see that we just created a button with an image and a text. And the same way, you can actually go and implement the same kind of modifiers in here. And then we get the same kind of result. We have a button with some padding and a background color and corner radius. However, as you can see, it becomes kind of tedious to write the same kind of code over and over again. And you might or you might not know, you can use custom modifier and you can apply your modifier in there. However, Apple is giving us something called ButtonStyle, and with this ButtonStyle, it's a static member that you can call and it will add all these modifiers at once. So how can we go and create a static modifier like this? So let's go and create one. It's going to be a public structure and we can call it whatever we want, and I'm going to call it rounded button for now, and that's going to be a button style. And we can call body in here and it will auto-complete the protocol that we need to conform to. I'm just going to delete this, and this is going to return some kind of view. And our configuration is basically the button that we configured with the closure of what is going to run. And all after that is we're going to be adding the modifiers. So as you can see right now, our Swift compiler does not complain anymore. So we have right now a button style. So now that we created our rounded button style, we need to make an extension to our static member, and where the base of the static member is button style. Okay. So whenever we're looking for a button style, our static member will have some static variables that will return the button style that we want. So let's go and write those. So we will have a static var of a rounded, and that is gonna be static member of a rounded button, and let's just return our init.init, and then we just say rounded button. Alright, so now we have this rounded. So if I delete this code in here and I say dot button style dot rounded, I should see the exact same result in here, which it does. Of course you don't see anything, but let's go and say if this was blue, you will see that the one that applies my button style has actually changed. I'm going to configure it back to red. And the same thing we can do in here. So we can delete all this code and you can just say button style dot rounded, and it applies the button style that we created. That's great. Now we found a way how we can create our custom buttons and call them as button styles in just one line, so we can reuse this kind of code everywhere and we can configure all our buttons in our code base. However, those are not the only types of buttons that you can create. You can go and create all kind of buttons. So you can go and say another button of an action. We're gonna have an empty action, and this one I would like to have a vertical stack. You can call the same again, image and text in here, and you can see that we can create even vertical stacks of our image on the top or text on the bottom. And of course we can apply the same rounded button style. However, in this case I'm not gonna have the text, so I can remove even my vertical stack. I'll just have an image. So yes, you can even create a button with just an image. And although rounded button sounds okay, I can also mask it to some kind of shape. So I would like this button to be a circle. So you can just say dot mask and then add a circle shape in there. And you see now our button is a circle. It's quite often to see circle buttons, rounded buttons, square buttons, linked buttons. It's nice that SwiftUI allows you to configure those just with a couple of lines of code, and you can reuse your code using the button styles. Now, there are also some other buttons that you see, such as like when you're logging in or signing up in an app. You see all these kind of full width buttons. So let's go and see how we can create those kind of full width buttons. Before we actually go and reuse anything, I'm gonna write here what button I want. First of all, I would like a button that will log me in, and we'll have an action that we are not gonna do anything with it. Now, first of all, I would like to see the frame of my button. So since we want it to be full width, I'll have to go and add a frame with a minimum width and maximum width. So there's a huge initializer in here, what is the ideal width, maximum width, and so on. But all of these are optional, so you don't have to actually set those. And we're gonna use just the minimum width and the maximum width that will set our button to take the whole width of the screen. So in this case, I will just say minimum width is 0. I don't need the ideal width. The maximum width is gonna be dot infinity, so as much as it can take, and I'm not gonna use any other modifier. So now you can see the button has a rectangle that takes the whole width, which is great, but it's very tiny, right? So we can go and add a padding to it, and that will make our button a bit bigger. Great. Now, what is it missing? It's missing, of course, a bit of color, right? So let's go and add our background color, which is gonna be again red. And now we have a full width button that has a background color of red. I'm gonna change the accent color actually in here to white, just to make it prettier. And full width button doesn't look really nice. We would like also to add like some corner radius to make it prettier, of like 10, and then a final padding. So that's more like it. This is more like a login button that you will see in an intro screen of an app. So let's go actually and create another modifier, another button style for this one. I'm gonna copy all the code here, and the same way we're gonna write our public struct, and I'm gonna call this primary full width button. That is a button style, and this will return some kind of body with a return type of some view. And again, we add our configuration, and then we copy the code that we created the button. And now we need to go and say our static var of primary full width is a static member of our primary full width button. And here we just simply return .init with a primary full width button. Great. So simply, if we go here and say button style dot primary full width, our button style shall apply once we resume our preview. Great. However, if I play my preview here, you will see that when I press it, I don't kind of get an action of like I'm pressing it. The text gets a bit of like fainted at the back. So that is not really saying to the user that, oh, you're actually tapping the button. So there's something that we can do on our button style. Since it gets initializer of is pressed, we can actually go and change some stuff. So my accent color, if it's pressed, I would like it to be .red, otherwise give it a white color. And my background is gonna be red only if it's not pressed. Otherwise, I would give it of a color .blue. So right now, whenever I'm pressing the button should become blue, and when I'm releasing it, it should be red again. And also my accent color will change depending on that as well. So let's go and tap our button. So you already see that the user now gets some kind of feeling that the button is tapped. Of course, you don't need to use blue, you can use what kind of color you want, you can use clear or something, and then gives another feeling, and so on. So I'm just gonna leave it blue for now, or you can give it a darker reddish or so on. That's up to you to decide. Great. Now, we usually have a primary button, we also have a secondary button. So let's go and see how our secondary button would look like. We can create another button for sign up. And of course we could add the same button style to the primary, but we don't want to mix two different actions with the same value. So we can actually go and create another struct, and I'm mostly gonna copy the whole code in here and just delete the primary and add secondary. So our secondary full button, an accent color of red. Don't wanna know if it's pressed or not for now. The frame will stay the same. The background, so instead of a background in here or a corner radius, we are gonna be adding a border. So this one will just have a border with some corner radius, and the border is color.red and corner radius 10. Great, so let's go and create this secondary full width button. So we're just going to copy the code and replace the same secondary, and here secondary as well, and secondary as well. Great, so let's go and call the secondary full width button to our button style. So yeah, this is how more or less would look like. Now you will see that the spacing in between them is too much. That's just because we went and we added extra padding in here. So to fix that, we can just say, actually, I would like just padding for the leading and trailing instead of the top and bottom as well, and the same one in here as well. So right now you will see the buttons are going to be closer to each other. And just like this, with like, you have two buttons, they all have their button style. All you care about is just go and create the action for it and leave your button styles to your extensions to take care of. So there you have it, folks. You can go and create all kind of button styles and all kind of buttons with different content inside. It doesn't need to be just text. You could add images, you can add different stacks, you can have multiple images if that's what you want. It's just as simple as just go inside, play around with it, create your button styles, reuse your code as much as possible. And don't forget that if you're watching this video while it's still in beta, a lot of things are gonna change, and I'm gonna be updating you guys in the comment section below or in the description below. You can be checking that for more updates if you're coming after SwiftUI is out of beta. I hope you find this useful. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you folks in the next one.